Known as the man who discovered America, Columbus was in fact trying to find a westward sea passage to the Orient, means Asia, when he landed in the New World in 1492. This unconditional discovery was to change the course of world history. During the 15th and 16th centuries, leaders of several European nations sponsored expeditions abroad in hope that explorers would find great wealth and vast undiscovered lands. The Portuguese were the earliest participants in this age of discovery. Starting in about 1420, small Portuguese ships known as cravels zipped along the African coast, carrying spices, gold, slaves and other goods from Asia and Africa to Europe. These expeditions helped Columbus to accomplish his goals, and he became one of the greatest explorers of all time. Christopher Columbus was born in Genoa in about 1451. His father was a weaver and small-time merchant. As a teenager, Christopher went to sea, traveled extensively and eventually made Portugal his base. He remained at sea until 1470, when French privateers attacked his ship as it sailed north along the Portuguese coast. The boat sank, but the young Columbus floated to shore on a scrap of wood and made his way to Lisbon, where he studied mathematics, astronomy, cartography and navigation. He also began to hatch the plan that would change the world forever. It was here that he initially attempted to gain royal patronage for a westward voyage to the Orient, his enterprise of the Indies. When this failed, and appeals to the French and English courts were also rejected, Columbus found himself in Spain, still struggling to win backing for his project. Finally, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella agreed to sponsor the expedition, and on 3rd August 1492, Columbus and his fleet of 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and Nina, set sail across the Atlantic. Columbus wanted fame and fortune. Ferdinand and Isabella wanted the same. Columbus' contract with the Spanish rulers promised that he could keep 10% of whatever riches he found, along with a noble title and the governorship of any land he should encounter. At the end of the 15th century, it was nearly impossible to reach Asia from Europe by land. The route was long and arduous, and encounters with hostile armies were difficult to avoid. Portuguese explorers solved this problem by taking to the sea. They sailed south along the West African coast and around the Cape of Good Hope. But Columbus had a different idea. Why not sail west across the Atlantic instead of around the massive African continent? The young navigator's logic was sound, but his maths was faulty. He argued, incorrectly, that the circumference of the earth was much smaller than his contemporaries believed it was. Accordingly, he believed that the journey by boat from Europe to Asia should be not only possible but easy. On 12th October 1492, Columbus and a group of his men set foot on an island in what later became known as the Bahamas. Believing that they had reached the Indies, the newcomers dubbed the natives as Indians. Initial encounters were friendly, but indigenous population all over the New World was soon to be devastated by their contact with Europeans. Columbus landed on a number of other islands in Caribbean, including Cuba and Hispaniola, and returned to Spain in triumph. He was made Admiral of 7 Seas and Viceroy of the Indies, and within a few months set off on a second and larger voyage. More territory was covered, but the Asian lands that Columbus was aiming for remained elusive. Others began to dispute whether this was in fact the Orient or a complete new world. In May 1498, Columbus sailed west across the Atlantic for the third time. He visited Trinidad and the South American mainland before returning to the ill-fated Hispaniola settlement, where the colonists had staged a bloody revolt against the Columbus brothers' mismanagement and brutality. Conditions were so bad that Spanish authorities had to send a new governor to take over. Christopher Columbus was arrested and returned to Spain in chains. In 1502, cleared of most serious charges but stripped of his noble titles, the aging Columbus persuaded the Spanish king to pay for one last trip across the Atlantic. This time Columbus made it all the way to Panama, just miles from the Pacific Ocean, where he had to abandon 2 of his 4 ships in the face of an attack from hostile natives. Empty-handed, the elderly explorer returned to Spain, where he died in 1506. Today, Columbus has a great legacy. He is remembered as a daring and path-breaking explorer who transformed the New World. Columbus had seen both success and failures in his life, but he never deviated from his path. It doesn't matter he found India or not. It doesn't matter his calculation about the Earth size was not so correct. What does matter? That he never stopped and kept on exploring the world.